We need a moment of silence for Arcane Season 2, Part 3. Cause what did I just watch? This final part was spectacular. There was so much that was covered in these final episodes that I was confused if the creators were going to be able to successfully tie everything together by the end of the series. There were so many times where my brain was literally racing trying to connect all of the dots during these episodes. So let's get into it all. And if you haven't already, please make sure you watch Arcane Season 2, the final part, because warning, there are spoilers ahead. I want to briefly talk about the first episode of this final part. We finally get to see what Jace saw during his time in the Arcane, as well as Echo and Heimerdinger. I'll start off with Echo and Heimerdinger and their alternate timeline saga. It was so nice being able to see an adult version of Milo and Claggor too. It was interesting to see what Jinx and Echo's life could have been like if the events that took place in the first season's part 1 hadn't unfolded the way that they had. Not only does Jinx still have both of her brothers and Vander, she also has Silco, who I'm sure wasn't as significant to her in this timeline, but nevertheless. Echo also is able to reunite with Benzo, his surrogate father, and I totally am shipping Echo and Powder in this timeline. Honestly, I feel like the creators are giving us fans what they knew that we wanted in this episode. I think it was interesting how Vi was a sacrifice that allowed for this timeline to exist. One where everyone is alive, Zahn is thriving, Silco and Vander have rekindled their friendship. In this timeline, I imagine that it took some time for Powder and Vander to mourn Vi, but at least they had each other. In our OG timeline, Vi and Jinx are left to their own devices when it comes to their mourning. And, well, I guess Jinx has Silco. We see how that turned out. I was, however, devastated with Heimerdinger literally sacrificing himself for Echo and telling him that he made his life worth living. Like, what? Moving on to Jace in this post-apocalyptic world that he sees, and with this full army of robots. Of course, I've watched episode 9, so I know what those robots are, and I also know who that person is under the hooded figure. But when I was watching this episode, I just want to say that for the record, my hunch about who was in the hooded figure was right. I knew that it would be an older version of Victor. And this segues us into episodes 8 and 9, where Victor goes fully rogue. He essentially loses his physical form and therefore his humanity, one might argue. This version of him is okay with sacrificing Vander. He's okay with sacrificing Sky, if it means that everyone can be a part of his hive mind. He low-key reminds me of Vecna from Stranger Things in this sense. In episode 8, we finally see what's going on with Mel and these mage powers she harnesses. We learn about what really happened to Kino, and we learn that Mbessa is really war hungry. We knew this already before, but that line about having an army of soldiers that can't die, it really just highlights how bloodthirsty she is. I mean, for a minute there, I thought she was storming on the city of Piltover in episode 9, simply because she was upset with Caitlyn for double-crossing her, for siding with Vi and Jinx. But this is before I realized that she was looking to grow her army of Victor bots, for lack of a better term. And Mbessa was so blood hungry that I'm not even sure she realized what she was agreeing to with Victor, because Victor was never really on her side. His mission was far greater than Mbessa's plan to fight against the Black Rose. I'd also like to note that I simply loved how Mel was able to embody her powers. She looked so cool with those mage upgrades, and it was refreshing to see how she was able to harness the powers to sort of double cross the Black Rose. Her fighting against the Black Rose and her mother within minutes of each other symbolizes the fact that she is her own person. She wasn't picking sides when it came to the Black Rose or her mother. It felt like she knew that both of them were lying in some shape or form. Her actions prove that she's not merely a passenger in life like she was telling Jace. And there's something so empowering about seeing a Black woman taking up space like Mel has in the series. So thank you to the Arcane creators. Alright, now I have to get to Jinx, Vi, and Caitlyn. I cannot give this review without talking about that jail scene with Vi and Caitlyn. Was I the only one who was sort of taken aback? Like they're literally getting geared up for the biggest battle of their life, and this is what we're doing? Now, of course, I get it. The stakes are high, emotions are raving, this will be the first time they've been together in months, But during this whole scene, I couldn't help but still be on edge, worrying about what's happening with Jinx and everyone else for that matter. Like, Vander's memories were being erased around this time too, and I'm watching Vi and Caitlyn rekindle their love and all. I mean, it's great. It felt a little out of place for me. And also, I may have been slightly upset with Caitlyn for having Maddie as her rebound. Speaking of Maddie, it did not surprise me that she was literally a rat. The way she was kissing up to Vi in earlier parts of the season, and then Caitlyn later on, her loyalty was always suspect from jump. It was a satisfying reveal when her true allegiance to Mbessa was uncovered. Now, on to Jinx. In my earlier reviews, I mentioned that Jinx is the ultimate crash out, and rightfully so. And I was right in thinking that Isha would be the final straw for her. Like, what do you even say when the ultimate crash out is literally crashing out? I honestly wanted to cry when Jinx was trying to take herself out. Thank God for Echo and his impeccable timing. Echo actually came in clutch this whole final part. He quite literally saves the day as the series ends, with his invention that he also used to save Jinx's life earlier on. Echo's impeccable timing and Jace literally talking Victor off the edge was such a rewarding watch. Again, we have this story where two or one friend and a duo gets powers, and one friend has to disarm the other whose intentions are not pure. This is something that we've seen countless times. I mean, I just reviewed Transformers 1 where this plot line between Megatron and Optimus Prime is also incorporated. But it's all about how these types of stories are told, and Arcane does a fabulous job at essentially debunking perfectionism. I actually really enjoyed watching Victor look into Jace's memories and seeing the message that the older Victor left for himself. The wise words of older Victor really stuck with me, and I feel like they can be applied to everyday life. And here's a quote: "When every equation was solved, all that remained were fields of dreamless solitude. There is no prize to perfection, only an end to pursuit, in all timelines and all possibilities." Like, huh? This is so conceptual and deep, and it's real. We've been hearing this for as long as we can remember. Things like the hive mind is impractical because everyone's supposed to be different. There's beauty in imperfection because without it, everyone would be the same. The world would be boring. And we got a glimpse of that type of world alongside Jace when he was sucked into the future. Alright, I cannot end this review without touching on Jinx and her sacrifice. This is quite literally my only qualm with the final part. Jinx is one of my favorite characters in the show, and so seeing her tumble to her death alongside Warwick, not Vander because Vander was gone by this point, but to see Jinx tumble to her death was heartbreaking. How dare the creators tease us by alluding to her death several times during the beginning of episode 9? I mean, we literally see her begin to explode before Echo brings her back to life, time and time again, only for her to actually die by the end of the episode. It honestly felt like that meme with the guy ripping off his headphones, because what type of psychological warfare is this? Alright, so I'm rating this final part of season 2 a 9 out of 10. It would have been a 10 out of 10, but Jinx is dead, despite what I know the fandom is thinking. Heimendinger is also dead, and I'm pretty sure Victor and Jace are too. And yes, I know it was for the plot, but these are some fan favorite characters here. It's just too much. But I'm rating Arcane the series a solid 11 out of 10. One of the best shows I've ever watched. I'm really upset that it's ending. Moment of silence because it's gone. Alright, let me know what you think of Arcane Season 2 or the whole series in the comments below. And if you haven't already, go check out my reviews on the first 2 parts of Season 2. And please don't forget to like and subscribe.